Even though many Canadians are refusing to take the vaccines, they're arriving in large shipments across the country. To talk about this in more detail is political reporter Brian Lilly with the Toronto Sun. Now, Brian, there's some controversy over changes provinces are making over how long between doses. Some doctors are calling it human experimentation.
Yeah, and I think those words are pretty strong. They may be accurate, but it's taking it to the nth degree, let's say. Provinces are kind of in a bind because even though we are getting a pile of doses, and we'll talk about how many in a minute, but the simple fact is we're not getting sufficient enough doses to vaccinate the population as quickly as they want because the truth is most people do want the vaccine, and those numbers go up every single time there's a poll. You look at the uptake rate when any of the provinces went into long-term care homes, and it's over 90%. So yeah, people want the vaccine because they want to get back to normal. That's what this is all about. Let me get back to normal. Let me have my old life back. And so the provinces said, fine, you know what? We think we can extend the interval from 21 days, which is what it's supposed to be for Pfizer, 28 days for Moderna, and up to 12 weeks for AstraZeneca for their second dose, and they said, we'll take it out to 16 weeks or 4 months. Well, that means that you can get a lot more needles into a lot more people's arms in that time period. In fact, here in Ontario, they're talking about having everyone that wants a shot, every adult that wants one, their first dose by June 20th instead of sometime in September. And then they go around and they do the second dose. But that's leaving an awful lot of people worried that it's not following manufacturers' instructions. There are doctors speaking out. There are individual citizens speaking out saying this isn't right. It's not my favorite thing in the world to do, but given the limited supply that Canada has access to, I fully understand why the provinces are doing it. And they're now doing it with the blessing of the federal government, the blessing of Health Canada, and the blessing of the National Advisory Committee on Immunization. So it's going ahead, even though there are some people saying we shouldn't be doing it this way.
Now, as a country, Canada's only received around 3 million doses total since around mid-December, but now we're receiving more than 1 million a week. Brian, let me ask you something. Would this not overwhelm the system?
Let's hope not. Now, it's 1 million this week, and then it goes down again next week, comes up a bit slightly the week after that, and then stays fairly steady. And the reason it's over 1 million this week is that we're getting 500,000 AstraZeneca doses. Well, they actually arrived last week, but the provinces aren't getting them until this week. So, Ontario, for example, is going to start in pharmacies as of Friday with AstraZeneca. Alberta is going the pharmacy route, so is Quebec, although they don't start theirs till next week. So the provinces are just getting them now, even though they've been in the country for a week. We're also getting just shy of 500,000 Pfizer doses, and then about, I think, 160,000 for the whole country Moderna, and those numbers are going to be going up. But Moderna comes every 3 weeks, so there's just like a glut all at once. The way it's going to be used, it will be measured out. I can tell you that despite claims by some people that provinces are failing and leaving doses in freezers, those are people that look at how much of the doses delivered the provinces have used the day after a big delivery. You look at Alberta and it's regularly well over 90% by the time the next delivery shows up. Ontario is always either just over 90% or bumping up against 90%. That's effectively doing just-in-time delivery, right? You're getting your next doses arriving as you're using up the last one. So, speaking to various provincial governments and how they're going to be doing this, I have faith that this will work. Everyone has to remember that there isn't a big parade, there isn't all the attention paid to it, but provinces do this every single year with the flu vaccine. Ontario just did 6 million doses, and people barely batted an eye. There was a couple of complaints in the first week that I couldn't get my shot when I wanted it, and then after that, it went away. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, every province does the same thing. So yeah, they're going to be able to handle it.
Government and business leaders are now talking about vaccine passports as a way to let vaccinated people travel a little more freely. Now, that's concerned many people, including our very own Prime Minister. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I've heard Federal Health Minister Patty Hajdu talk about it. I've heard provincial health ministers and officials talk about it, and business leaders as well, because here's the idea. We're all going to get some proof of vaccination. right? You have to have it so that if you need a second shot, you can say, well, yeah, I got my first shot of this type of vaccine on this date. Well, can that be used as a vaccine passport of sorts? Can you use that to say, I've been vaccinated, let me travel without restriction? The airline industries would be interested in this. The tourism industries are interested in this because they've been decimated by COVID-19 and they want people to be able to travel. The prime minister rightly says that he has some concerns around human rights, around privacy, around equity on this front. The idea that, it is in many ways a paper please situation. That's not how we normally operate in Canada. What may happen, though, is that in order to travel to other countries, you will need to show your proof of vaccination. That already happens in some countries for a number of diseases that we don't have here. And if you're traveling, you're told before you leave, you must have these shots and proof of them to get in. That may happen here. I'm not sure which way federal and provincial governments in this country will go on whether you need to have one for moving around. But again, don't be surprised if you try and go to another country when this is all over and they say, have you had your COVID-19 vaccination? And if you can't provide proof, they may not let you in. Just like if you go to Thailand right now, you have to show that you've received a bunch of shots for various things that we don't normally have in this country, but that they are very concerned about.
Brian, many business owners I've spoken with here in southern Alberta are simply tired of the lockdowns and wearing masks. But you say a recent poll suggests that there's still widespread support for government mask mandates across 3 countries.
Yeah, this is a Maru Blue poll, one of the big polling companies that has developed over the last several years, international firm. And they polled in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and here in Canada. And yeah, they found more than 90% of people saying that they wear masks. Now, we may not all love it, but more than 90% of people wear masks on a regular basis, either all the time or most of the time. It was 97% in Canada, 96% in the UK, and 94% in the United States. 2% of people say they refuse to wear masks in Canada and the UK, and only 3% in the United States. And by the way, Alberta is not the capital of saying I refuse to wear a mask in Canada. That would be Quebec. Quebec, the Western United States and the northeast of England. And even there, the highest percentage of people saying they refuse is 7% in the Western US states. So yeah, most people are saying, fine, may not like it, but I'm going to wear it. As for whether governments went far enough in mandating masks, it's about 52% in the UK say they didn't go far enough. In the US, 40% say they didn't go far enough. And here in Canada, it's only 33%. Most in Canada say they got it about right. Very few people think that the government did big overreach on this. So, there is perhaps a reason why governments continue to hold the policies they do. Often, the public actually wants more than what the government's doing in terms of lockdowns and restrictions.
Brian, some political pundits are saying if the Conservatives are really hoping to win the next election, federal election, they really have to attack the Liberals on their economic record. But a new poll by both Bloomberg and Nano says the Tories have a little bit of ground to make up in that area.
Yeah, this is not a good news poll for the Conservatives when you've got a third of the population saying that the Liberals under Justin Trudeau are best placed to deal with the economy, and only 24% say Erin O'Toole and the Conservatives are. That's a bad news sign. That tells you where you're weak as a Conservative, because Conservatives normally lead on that question, normally lead by a wide margin. You'll get, the standard answer. People will, on these questions, go across party lines. They may vote for one party, and they might be a Liberal, and you'll ask them, well, who's better on the economy? Oh, the Conservatives. And you ask a Conservative, who's better on healthcare? Well, the Liberals. That sort of thing happens all the time. But you've only got a quarter of Canadians saying the Conservatives can do it. That's their ballot box question. By the way, the second place answer was none of them at 29%. But interesting thing how we've talked about the gender divide before, how men, in every poll, men tend to favor the Conservatives by a pretty decent margin. And women prefer the Liberals. On this one, even, women said, 35% of women said Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are best on the economy, uh, only 15% of them said the same about Aaron O'Toole and the Liberals. So they really do have to find a way to sell their message to women if they want to vote. It can be done. The Conservatives have led with women before. That's what brought you the 2008 and 2011 Conservative victories. They need to do it again if they want to win.
You know, there's a lot of chatter about Aaron O'Toole's leadership ahead of the Conservative convention, but now all of the talk has turned to abortion once again since O'Toole has come out saying he's pro-choice once again. Where does that leave social conservatives, Brian?
Well, there's a strange fight going on, and you always have to remember that there are factions within the social conservative movement as well. There are groups like Right Now in Calgary, which take a let's find candidates that we can work with and that are aligned with our values and help get them elected. And then you've got groups like Campaign Life Coalition who are much more strident. And look, some factions of the SOCON movement have yelled at me in the past for supporting bills that were incremental on issues of life. Because their view is it's all or nothing. Well, all or nothing is not going to win. So there's a bit of a fight going on behind the scenes among different factions of the social conservative movement to try and push things onto the agenda that didn't make it. And that includes Campaign Life Coalition trying to change the party constitution to make the party explicitly pro-life. The party doesn't want to go there. They haven't gone there in the past. Aaron O'Toole was asked on Tuesday, what's your stance? And that's why he came out saying he's pro-choice. The Conservatives always have to make sure that social conservatives feel welcomed within their party, but they also can't have it appear that the harshest elements of the social conservative movement are running the show. If you do that, then you can kiss goodbye to an awful lot of seats the Conservatives hold now and the ability to win. Doesn't mean you can't have social conservatives in prominent positions. Leslyn Lewis attracted an awful lot of support from people that were not SOCONs because of how she presented her argument, how she presented herself, and that matters a great deal. So, like I said, there's a fight within the party, and then there's a fight within social conservative factions in the party, and all of that's going on in the background leading up to the March 18th convention.
You know, Brian, there are many people who believe that the Liberals have gone so far to the left, they've passed the NDP way on the left, and the Conservatives have also moved to the left. They're more of a centrist party now here in Canada. That only leaves what? Maxime Bernier's PPC party is the true right-leaning party. So do you think maybe more social conservatives would go to the PPC and prop up Maxime Bernier?
I don't see that happening. Maxime Bernier is a libertarian. I've interviewed Max many times. He's always open and welcoming to social conservatives, but he's not one of them. And in the last election, the PPC did attract an awful lot of the types of people running in the operations in the background that new fringe parties attract. They attract fringe element people. And that got them into trouble with some of the things that the people stood for, believed, or had posted in the past. So I don't see Maxime Bernier growing. The big threat to the Conservatives from the right is the Maverick Party. We'll have to see how that goes. The Buffalo Party did well in Saskatchewan's election. We'll see what happens with the Maverick Party. It's headed up by Jay Hill. I've talked to other former Conservative MPs, people who sat in Parliament for years under the Conservative banner, who say, yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about voting for them. So I think that's the bigger threat rather than Maxime Bernier and the PPC.
You know what, I've talked to Jay Hill, and he does make a lot of sense with a lot of points that he brings up, especially when it comes to equalization payments. Brian, much of the world is still talking about the Oprah Winfrey interview with Harry and Meghan. Most are talking about it except for the Trudeau Liberals. PM Trudeau says, now's not the time to break with a monarchy in England.
Yeah, look, he had to dance as he was giving that answer, but his intergovernmental affairs minister, Dominic LeBlanc, was asked straight up, so what are your thoughts on the interview? And he was like, I did not watch the interview. The government will not be commenting on the interview. It's the right position for them to take. It's a no-win situation. You either come out strongly defending the monarchy or you just say nothing. And strongly defending the monarchy when there's been talk of racism, vague allegations of racism, that may not sit well with a lot of people. So, the PM just said, now's not the time. And then in a follow-up question was asked, well, you're always talking about getting rid of symbols of colonialism. And I thought he gave a good answer. I'm not sure if he believes the answer he gave because it sounds like something I might say, but he said, look, even Parliament that we're, sitting across the street from is a symbol of a system that came to us and was colonial. But just because there were mistakes in the past doesn't mean you throw everything out. Unfortunately, he has done that on occasion. But on this answer, he gave the right one. He said, you look to the past, you learn from the past, you learn from the mistakes, you change and you move on. So thankfully, he's not ready to say he wants to break with the monarchy. A couple of weeks ago, there was an interesting Ipsos poll saying once Queen Elizabeth passes on, support for the monarchy will drop tremendously. And I have to say, I do believe that.
One of our regular contributors, political columnist Brian Lilley, joining me once again from Toronto. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Hal.